the fundamental and very easy point to be made in regard to who God and who Jesus are in the New Testament is based on Psalm 110:1. It should be perfectly clear that Yahweh is a single person. We've gone over that many times. But having said that Yahweh is a single person, agreeing with the Jew in Mark 12:29, Jesus goes on then to reinforce his point, as if it needed to be reinforced, by asking them, what about Psalm 110:1, where Yahweh speaks to Adoni, my Lord? First thing is that you've got a stunning mistranslation in many of your versions. There should be no capital L on that second Lord. The word is Adoni in Hebrew. Certainly not Adonai, which is another title for God. So it's Adoni, a non-deity Lord, all 195 times. Please note that. So Yahweh is speaking to somebody who isn't Yahweh. And that, of course, is the Messiah, according to Jesus. And according to Jews later, they recognize Messiah there. Some of them earlier thought that it might be Hezekiah or Abraham or Job or somebody. They certainly didn't think that God was speaking to God. That's just nonsensical. Yahweh speaks to somebody who's not God, Adoni. Now, some of the current writers in Christology are saying, well, wait a minute, the cultic, as they call it, the cultic devotion offered to Jesus proves that he must be God. That's an argument in a circle. You see, Jesus is unique in the New Testament. He's not just a man. He's not an ordinary man. Ordinary men don't have God as their father. He's the unique, immortalized man. And who is to say what sort of cultic devotion is appropriate for an immortalized man? Who's going to say that? The answer is the Bible. And it's a fact that in Revelation 5, ultimate cultic devotion, if you like, is offered to Jesus as Messiah. It doesn't make him God. There's a wonderful statement in one of the big dictionaries where the writer says that the book of Revelation, that's Jesus speaking for 22 chapters, uses every known form of language to put Jesus and God at the same level, short of making them eternally co-equal. That's right. Jesus is as close to God as you can get. The devotion offered him in the New Testament is unique in terms of devotion to a man. Jesus is worshipped. The saints are worshipped in Revelation 3:9. That's a flexible term. Jesus is not worshipped as a second God. Jesus repudiates flat out the idea that he's claiming to be Yahweh. He's insulted by that. He goes on to explain that even judges can be called gods. And so in John 10, he says, I'm the Son of God, plainly. That's his own definition of who he is. We ought to listen to who Jesus says Jesus is, and we ought to listen to God saying who his Son is, and we ought to listen to God saying who he, God, is. And the Jews are 100% right. All those New Testament writers are Jewish. They never for one moment departed from the unitary, exclusivist monotheism of their heritage. The God of the Old Testament is the same God as the God of the New Testament without any possible deviation. If we lose that, as I fear we did in the centuries beyond the New Testament, we're in a ghastly muddle. And this is what we see in denominationalism. The chaos that's prevailing is due to the fact we've overlooked the extraordinary changes that began in post-biblical times, leading finally to the extraordinarily difficult definitions of the Athanasian Creed. Let me remind you of this to make my point clear. The Athanasian Creed, so-called, says, and this was recited in many churches until at least recently, that the Father is Almighty, and the Son is Almighty, and the Holy Spirit is Almighty, but that's not three Almighties. Well, it is. Language has ceased to have any meaning. That's a chair, that's a chair, and that's a chair. That's not one chair. The Seventh-day Adventists can say, till they're blue in the face, that 1 + 1 + 1 is 1. They can say it. But is that other than meaningless nonsense? We have to be very careful we don't talk nonsense in the name of Christianity.